everyone. Welcome to the Work It podcast, where EQ meets IQ, training workplace success. Visit workitcareers.com for more information on how you can discover and awaken your true career path. Welcome, everyone. I'm Lori, your host, and today marks the 5th podcast for Work It. And we have a very special guest today who shares a lot of the personality scoring that I have. So it's very rare that you can find someone who understands you completely and then nonetheless understands the whole Work It program completely. So I'm excited to have Ada Rios join us today to further describe how the 48's, which is the highest score in the testing, really impact our lives in a positive way and sometimes in a negative way. So welcome, Ada.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm Ada Rios, and I am so glad to be here sharing this podcast with you, Lori. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. It's a pleasure. You know, when we started doing these podcasts, the title of them is Where EQ Meets IQ. And you and I define probably some of the highest scores for EQ. So we're very emotionally connected to our audiences. And then those people that have the score and the high IQs, those are the 48's on the precision side. So we're 48's on the outgoing side, meaning stage people. But today we're going to really focus in on people that are opposite us. And those are the ones that really are fact-based and really wanting to see to believe, touch to believe. They need more proof. So Ada,
need facts, right?
It's a great discussion to have.
I know. I love it. And Lori, can you tell us about the personality testing you're using for Work It?
Sure. We're using Insight Inventory. So it's been around for close to 25, 30 years. And I've used it for a good amount of those years, building strong teams in the workplace. And now I've taken it to a different level to help students identify themselves and a career path that's beneficial to them. So this testing has 4 areas that you can score the highest score, which is 48. One being direct, one being outgoing, which you and I score very high on the outgoing side. The next one is steady, those people that just don't like to be rushed. And then the last one is precision, the precise people. And those are the ones we're kind of picking on today and picking on in a good way.
And why are we picking on them? You will see why we're picking on the 48's, right? Because they're so precise and they're the opposite of the outgoings that is Lori and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a lot of the 48's. It's just where their ego lives. It's a personality strength for sure to be so precise and so expert in whatever it is that you enjoy studying. But it's also where your ego lives. Now, Ada and I, like I mentioned earlier, we focus a lot on the emotional health of people. I do it trying to align them to a career that doesn't stress them out. And Ada is on the receiving end where people are already stressed out and they need to kind of work out some of those emotional issues so that they can live their life more healthy. So the two of us, although we do different things, we understand completely about emotional health.
Each other's work.
Mm-hmm. We do. So, we haven't said the word damn 48's too much so far in this podcast, but it's an area. We picked the word damn 48 because it's a belief system that exists in people when you score that high. It's very hard. There's a stubbornness that comes out of people when you score that high. To bring you back to a center point, it takes convincing, especially for the precise individuals, because again, they need it to be proved out. So how many times, Ada, recently have you had to prove things out, show them in a book?
Well, I'm like a honey for bees. I'm the honey, they are the bees. They're very attracted to my personality. So it's almost like I see them in a daily basis everywhere because they really stick, because they want to learn from you and they want to find out a lot of things about you. And I live with one, and I have lived with two of them. So that's why I love talking about 48s, because I'm on the other side, but I'm also seeing them, in front and sharing every day with them. My daughter is one of them.
Yeah, and my daughter is one as well. They do like to study, don't they?
They love studying. Like my daughter, if she doesn't go like 3-4 times a week to the library, she doesn't go one day. So she really loves books. I love books too, by the way. And I'm not a 48 in the precise side. And you can explain that, deeper, right, Lori?
Right. Yeah. I mean, with the 48s on precision, what we view them as is fact-based learners. So the school systems that exist today are really formed on fact-based learning. So those students tend to do very well. They love to understand history, whether it's a technical history or world history or some scientific proof of experiments from the past. It's just a preservation. They have a preservation mind, whether it's family history. They want to keep things structured. So these individuals usually have a lot of rules for their children to follow, if they have children, or maybe even some of their friends to follow. So they do enjoy the rules and they don't want to break them. Like I mentioned, they're very structured. So when an interruption happens to their plan, it causes a little bit of drama. And to take 48s on the precise side to the future, it is almost like pulling teeth.
Impossible. Almost impossible.
Almost impossible. Almost impossible, because there's a fear of the future because there's so much about the past. These are perfect people for, staying in therapy for 40 years because they can talk about the past every day and not move past it in a lot of cases.
Where I have to mention this, Lori, because, we in the other side of 48 were outgoing. We live in the future because we're visionaries, yes. Right? That's why we can see that so extreme, because we're completely in the other stream, right?
We are, which as parents, it creates a challenge when you have children that are more structured than the parents. And that doesn't happen, or at least you don't hear it happen too often. Usually the parents are the ones playing the rules. But it's happened to us. We're just kind of free birds, and we have children that are more structured than us. So it's almost like reverse roles sometimes. And that's
Lori,
a challenge.
I'm going to do a quick parenthesis in here because I want to mention this. What you just said is that having children that are so precise and us being in the other side. I remember when, Ruby, my daughter, was like 4 years old, and she'll be picking, needles from the floor and saying, "Hey, mommy, you have to take this because I can get hurt." And those kind of things, when you understand as a parent that this kid is not that it's mature because it's a child, it's just because the personality is already forming and you can see this coming. And one of the things with this test, with your test, is that the personality forms before 10, correct?
Yes.
10 years old. So yes. After that, there is patterns that are not going to change. And when we understand them, if it's for the home, for school, or for work, once you get that side of the person that you're not going to change that person, that's when you really stop like fighting, against the belief system or whatever it is that they have. So it makes everything easier. And I mention this because it has really simplified a lot of my work with my kids, in my life and in my career.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It's a good point. So many parents are struggling with trying to guide their children and help them make the right decisions. Once you understand the strength or the learning style of your child, you're no longer fighting with that child. You're cheering them on in the fashion that they learn in. And you're able to talk to teachers differently. And it's just a whole awakening that happens once you understand the learning style of your child. And then, that goes for anybody, coworkers. You could be a boss and have different coworkers that are, they learn differently because not everybody learns the same. So, there's such a huge benefit to understanding all this good stuff about strengths and not fighting people to change them to be how you learn, because it's virtually impossible. It's like an elastic band. It's gonna stretch right back to the original form.
But we live in that illusion that we can change maybe our partner, our couple, our kid. So it's just an illusion that if you really, get rooted, as I said, as you put your feet on the ground, and with this test, it's just clear the path for you, and you can really see that there is things that are not going to change in personalities, right? So it's getting out of that illusion. I call it illusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Ada mentioned before, we are, Ada and I are opposite of what the 48s that we're talking about today, or we're picking on a little bit. We're born to read people more so than science, technology on the technical side. But there's this knowledge that we seek that's more emotionally driven. So if there's books out there that are tapping into the emotional intelligence, those will be the books that we gravitate towards. Ada has probably a little bit larger challenge than I do as far as convincing her consumers. And that's trying to bring the medical science into what she offers from the emotional side. So she actually has to make sure she understands the medical science so that she can talk the same language as other professionals. So I give you a lot of credit for digging into those books, Ada.
Thank you. I love books. And if I can explain 48 with a book in my hand or with name of people who have done it and write about it, they love it. So that is one of the things, where I really, I don't want to say that I waste my time, but I feel like at least I give something to the precise ones with the books.
I mean, there's a lot of respect for these 48s because they're so opposite of what we are. We actually need them to have our back. And that's one of the things that I cover in the Work It program is the people that surround you, many of them have your back. So when we look at the strengths of a 48 precise, it's them taking the extra time that we don't normally take to do some research, and also to help ground us if we're, going off too much into the future, because we are very futuristic. And sometimes, the world is not ready sometimes for what we have to offer, but we see it each year. It gets a little closer, but it's interesting when you find a 48 precise and you're able to intrigue them with what you see coming as a trend. As long as they don't squash you for your ideas, it can be a wonderful relationship. It's when a 48 that is precise is also a 48 direct. And we'll talk about the combinations because Ada and I will have many damn 48 discussions. There's so many mixes of damn 48s that can really play positively and negatively in your life when there's too much structure, too many rules, and too much fear about the future. Imagine how stressful that is for people like Ada and I.
Yes, and for them it's so normal, right? But we think, and we see the other side. So I really feel like they stress about that too. They just don't notice it because it's
you're bringing up a good word, stress. 48 precise. In my studies of these individuals, they stress an awful lot. There's so much stress that they put on themselves.
And they beat themselves up too when they don't do the work, that when something is not precise, let's put it like that, because we're talking about the precise ones. Like if they don't follow steps and something goes wrong, that's one of the things that I've noticed too. And that's why we're talking about them, because we want to help them, and that's my work, is showing them that other intelligence, the emotional intelligence, that not everything is brain. Right. You know what I mean? So it's getting into that. It's just as I you said, at the beginning, we're going to have more of this podcast and talking about the 48s, because there is not just one. There is the different.
Yeah, it's almost
four
like
types, correct?
it's like making a different recipe, because there's really no. I've not found a single person that is exact like my personality or of other personalities, but you and I score very, very similarly. We're almost exact. And that's the closest thing that I've found out of over 1,000 students. So it's very rare that you find someone in your life that actually thinks the same way as you. A lot of cases, it's opposite. You'll have a 48 in your life. And how do you work with that 48, whether it's a child, a husband, wife, or a coworker or boss? And the Work It program helps you better understand the extremes of people's personalities so that you can laugh about your differences before you cry about them or you get sick over them. So, like Ada mentioned, she's learned a lot with all the people that have put additional stress in her life because she was misunderstood. She wasn't stressing when they felt that she should be stressing. So all these things make a lot better sense now, right, Ada?
Definitely, Lori. And when you're talking about it, it's almost like a movie going through my head, because one of the things I wanted to say in here is that a lot of the people who is doing, work out there, emotional work, because we all need a therapist at some point in our life. And I have to say this because we all have problems, right? But there is just a few that really look for answers and they decide to go to any therapist. And of course, there is a psychologist out there. And I would like to recommend, Work It test, because you can really make your work so much easier. And for me, you have noticed that if I'm going to see a person who has problems, let's call it a patient, and they come to me with all these problems, I said, for me, Work It, it's a map of their personality, where they're standing, and that will help me to get to the next step. So I'm talking about from a perspective of helping people from therapy, because these tests can be used for so many things as a tool to know the person, because it's numbers. It doesn't change.
And that's a fantastic point, because I recently have partnered with many psychologists, and they actually realize that having this map of what motivates their patient, what stresses them out, what their learning style is, and their work style, it takes a lot of the questions out, and it can lead to a healing much faster than not having it. So, thank you for pointing that out. I think we're going to have some fun right now, Ada. We're going to actually kind of describe how a 48 who's precise goes about planning a holiday dinner. And, we're recording this at Easter, but it just pertains to any holiday. It could be a birthday party. It could be a summer picnic. I know that I've seen some 48s in action when they have to plan an event. And I'm just going to throw out a couple of observations that I have, and then maybe you can add to it. So a 48's mind normally will make sure that they're planning about 2 to 3 months in advance. And so it puts a lot of pressure on them for that 60 to 90 day period, because they don't want to forget anybody. They don't want to misspell any names if there's seating that's involved. They're really looking at the menu to make sure that everyone's going to like the food.
Yes.
What else have you seen with 48s?
Well, it's just that the precise comes with detail. So they want to have all these details, and they don't really skip steps, So being precise will mean 1, 2, 3, then they cannot go from 1 to 3. So if they're planning a party, they will have this time, and they will separate everything, and you are right, will stress. And the other thing is that they're not spontaneous, right? Because we're spontaneous. We can do things at the last minute. 48's can't. Would you say, is that right, Lauren?
Yeah, they have a hard time. They do get super stressed out if it's last minute. They're definitely intrigued. Like I mentioned earlier, 48's on the precise side are intrigued by some of the spontaneous accomplishments that people like us achieve. They're definitely intrigued by that because it's not something that they could do easily.
And one of the things, Lori, that I really would like people to understand is out there, it's that we're not trying to criticize or judge or anything. We're just giving another point of view. And when I see a 48, I almost recognize that personality now. And when I see that, I completely understand them and I know where they're standing. So I don't even fight it anymore. Before, when you don't know, you said, oh, this person drives me crazy. I cannot do it like that. I don't need all that time to make this party. So that's when you really start, seeing the personalities. But a lot of people most of us, we don't understand. And we don't even stop for a second to think that person their personality is like this. So bringing awareness with this test really brings awareness to that part of the, human beings.
Yeah. When I have students and their parents in my session, I laugh out loud because, one day that child is going to need some sort of party planned for them, whether it's graduation, wedding, whatever. And knowing, without giving the parent the test, I can tell, just like you can, if they're extremely structured, detailed. And I laugh out loud because it's going to be a challenge for the child who is maybe not structured to have to watch that parent stress out unnecessarily. So I do try to give some advice before they leave and how they can just recognize the stress and laugh it off, because laughter is, one of the best medicines, and they should laugh it because there's nothing in life that should be that stressful, especially party planning.
Yes. And we see it from the other side. So I really, in my life, I can only say it really helped me because I have one 48 and another one that is not a 48, but it's close to where he still needs plans. He's spontaneous, but he's not in the extreme as spontaneous as I am. Because you give that example, it's like if I tell you that we're going on a trip tomorrow, I will be ready by tonight.
Well, Ada, I've seen how you pack, and it's one oversized bag and things hanging out of it. And with the 48 precise, you're going to have them putting everything nice and neat in their suitcase, and it might be packed 3 weeks before the trip.
That's another one, just like the example on the party, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another example right there.
Yeah, and in laughing about the differences is a beautiful thing. If there's something that has to be attention to detail, making sure that you remember your passport if you're traveling internationally, you definitely want a 48 precise in your life on that, because they will have a checklist and everything will be checked off. Now, these people will also be stressed out. So it's important for people like us who are very emotionally driven. We help calm them down, don't we?
Oh, yes, we do. We do. And they ground us, just like what you said, because we do need people like this in our lives. But there is a point to where we need to stay away because we need to be us, very freely.
Right. It's true. When you encounter somebody who thinks the same way as you, it's very freeing. And I would imagine same for the 48 precise, when they're in a room of people that are of the same belief, where it could get crazy is if they don't have the same belief.
I have a question.
Sure.
So now, if there is a 48 what will be the person, the other one that will get along with a 48? Because I'm not sure if it's another 48. Like if we're talking about relations, like in a couple, because I know you do students, but you have to help me, with partners too. Like if there's somebody who is married, I really or you are going to get married, I really recommend this test.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be a good personality for the 48 precise?
Okay, so the good personality for 48 precise is, believe it or not, someone similar to our personality, but less vocal, because you and I are very direct. So what happens is we like to speak our mind. For somebody with a 48 precise, their best companion for life would be someone who admires their expertise and does not question their expertise, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. And that I've been wanting to tell you that, to ask you that question. So thank you for your answer, because now I know.
Yeah, it's just when we talk about the combination of somebody who's very direct and also very precise, that's an extreme. There's two ego points that are just really, really strong. And, that would be a very serious discussion, but somebody who's just precise, but doesn't require a stage and doesn't require to tell people what to do. The best person to be in their life would be somebody who's not going to question their beliefs, number one, or question their answer, number two. So, because they put a lot of effort in research, those 48, those damn 48s on the precise side, they put a lot of effort into research. So, school grades are extremely important to them. They really understand the rating systems, laws. They put a lot of effort into understanding what they're walking into.
But that's one of the characteristics that I like about 48. So they're so smart, and they read so many books that, as you said, I also have that in me, where I like facts. But the facts don't define what I believe.
Right.
You know what I mean, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. One thing that we didn't cover on the 48 precise is there's fear that exists in a lot of these, in the ego. And the biggest fear that a precise 48 has is spending too much money, spending money foolishly. So a fear of not having enough at retirement. There's a lot of that fear that exists. So when you have a 48 in your life, they may, they're going to spend money on the things of quality because they usually go towards brand name, which tends to be more expensive, but they'll be looking for the sales. It's just, they have more of a fear of money than people of our personality. So I wanted to put that out there.
Definitely. I think that's a very strong point, and when you said, when you mentioned the ego, I said got out, but for you in work, it is the lack of control. You put it as, right? Because how would you address that, Lori?
So when there's a student that, is scoring a 48, we talk about money, and we have, part of the planning is making sure that they're setting a financial goal, but they recognize when they've gone too far to not spend an extra dollar, in their life. So it's just catching their ego.
And they work with budgets, right? A lot.
Yes. But they have to set financial goals. And with 48s that are extreme, they tend to fall into a belief system where they feel they don't have enough. And, it's, the question is, what is enough? And that's something that they have to define. So it's just an important piece to bring out when you do score that high, whether you're 10 years old, 25 or 45. Obviously at 45 years old, you're more stressed out about, making sure you have enough for retirement. But I can see where the stress may come on as young as 25. So I work with them.
Oh yeah. I've seen it with my daughter.
Yeah. They hold back spending because they don't feel it's a worthy enough cause, or they won't have enough for tomorrow. Maybe that's the right way to put it. They don't feel like they have enough financially for tomorrow.
But in there, Lori, I will have to say that deprived from doing things too, because of the money factor. So it's because you are 48 and you fear the money and you want to save for retirement or whatever and thinking about the future, you don't really think about the present. And this is where the IQ comes with the EQ, right? Being very intelligent and, of course, thinking about your finances. But also thinking about living the today, being happy, going outside, even if you think you're going to spend money, you can take a walk, be in your favorite place and still not spend money. But sometimes they deprive because they stay home thinking, oh, I'm going to go and spend this, and that. And I really have to mention this because that is the part, when I work with the emotional side of the therapy, I see that that's part of the problem, and that's when they start getting sick.
Absolutely. Any kind of stress in anyone's life will cause illness for sure. And I think, what you do and what I do is a prevention and a healing. So, it's a new concept. And as you and I are visionaries, we wait for the world to catch up to us, and it's coming. It's definitely coming, but it requires a lot of patience.
We're getting there.
We are getting there. So I want to thank you for being my guest today. And like I mentioned before, we have a lot to talk about on the damn 48's. And just like we're picking on the precise 48's, the fact-based learners, the lifelong learners, the history preservationists, the people that love the book, especially from a technical standpoint, and they love their details. That's who we're talking about today. But next time we meet, we're going to be talking about the people who love the stage, love people to an extreme. And sometimes we can carry it on too far. So we need people to have our back to pull us back a little bit.
And those are the precise ones, right?
Yeah, sometimes, but without squashing us. So it's important to have that balance. So I appreciate you so much for being you, and also for being my guest. And I'm looking forward to further explaining, the damn 48's to the world with your help. And, when I talk about the world, I actually found somebody who scores very similarly to me, and she's from Guatemala. So, we're different ends of the world, and, the world is small.
It is. And I'm just so lucky to find you. I'm wearing my Power of Two bracelet. You will see it in YouTube, because I just love having somebody who can really understand what I'm about, and explaining me what I'm about too, and making me see this other part of me that I didn't see before. So it has really helped me through my professional and personal life. I'm happier. I'm healthier. I don't fight with my kids too much anymore. I don't have too many. I don't confront people anymore because of the personality that it's so strong. Sometimes I feel like I have to defend myself. At least before. Now I don't. So that's what I really wanted to talk to you, with you in this damn 48's, because there is 3 more types of 48's. The precise ones are not the only ones. I'm one too, but I'm in the outgoing 48 side. So I hope our personality is the one that is next on the podcast.
And I'll end this by saying, Ada and I love people so much that we've spent a good part of our life trying to change people and helping them be happier and see the world the way we do, which is futuristic. I think what we've both learned is we can't change people. We're not here to change people. We're here to recognize their strengths and work with those strengths and eliminate some of the stressful environments around them, or give them tools so that they can better understand the people and personalities around them.
And themselves.
It's the most important thing, is once you understand yourself, the rest is easy. So again, thank you so much for being my guest. And for all those people out there listening, you can get more information about Work It on the website workitcareers.com. And I look forward to talking with you again next week, and have a great week.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for inviting me. And also the same for Ada. You can go to adarios.net and see part of what I do and what I share with the world. So thank you, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.